Yes, the video is done, and although a lot of it looks unprofessional to me, I'm actually really happy with it. One change of direction I went into for the video was I was originally thinking of leaning into not just like the sound of Say It Loud era James Brown, but his whole impact on popular culture, which was huge. So I was thinking of doing footage of him and Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X and the backdrop of the civil rights movement, and I very quickly realized that just was not going to work. Uptown Funk is a very kind of light, fun song, and yeah, that would just hit a whole host of like awkward tonal shifts. Also, like, it's not my culture, and if I was going to do something like that, I'd need to collaborate with someone whose culture it is. Another issue is that over the decades, everybody has sampled James Brown in one way or another. His look, his sound, his lyrics. And actually, I mean, relatively recently, there's a current artist who I feel like has done sort of the definitive modern take on James Brown. And that's Janelle Monáe in the song Tightrope. I am not going to do anything as good as that in that lane, so yeah. So what I ended up doing instead was filling the video with more general kind of 1960s pop culture references, things like the moon landing, Richard Nixon, movie title sequences of Alfred Hitchcock and the James Bond films, and quite a bit on the murderous HAL 9000 AI from the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Not entirely sure why. I mean, I'm an obsessive fan, so that might be part of it. Uptown Funk, the sound in the video was originally set in the 80s, and it's set in New York, and Christopher Walken's a really kind of New York actor. So, and the song references Michelle Pfeiffer, and I think that's probably what put it in my head. Just for context, when I first moved onto this boat over a decade ago, after a particularly brutal breakup, I felt like the most productive way to spend the next 12 months wasn't to kind of get out and meet new people, but to just try to perfect my Christopher Walken impersonation. And even then, like, it wasn't particularly good. I mentioned that in preface to the fact that I was going to start this Uptown Funk music video for some reason with me doing a recreation of what I find hilarious scene from the movie musical Puss in Boots. Christopher Walken is kind of harassing a band leader, saying, "Nobody does court dancing anymore. Don't tell me you don't know any country dancers." But then I realized that I would essentially be making an in-joke just for myself. And for my first YouTube video, that's probably a mistake. That's probably a mistake. Okay, for me, the most important thing this track and this video needed to achieve was it needed to create the right feeling, the right kind of emotion, the right mood. And for me, it did that. So that is actually the thing I'm happiest with. Being a bit more specific, I was really surprised how well the horns sounded. I mean, that was just using samples, and usually you can tell when they're samples. To me, that sounds like a live, horn section. What else? I liked the way the green screen experiment worked, particularly at the beginning of the video. That said, I like how the green screen experiment worked, but some of it, particularly at the end, is shockingly bad. Like, you can pause and I have no hands. So yeah, but in the process of doing it, I felt like I learnt from my mistakes, and I would hope the next time I do green screen, it's going to look a lot better. Also, this is a tiny thing, but this time I wasn't quite confident enough in my color correction skills to tone down my incredibly flushed cheeks towards the end of the video. I kind of end up looking like your drunk uncle at Christmas. I'm actually doing it now. I realize I'm sort of blushing on camera, which I didn't think would be a problem, but every day's a school day. All right, here's another one. I kind of feel like, for me at least, there's an unavoidable comparison between my vocal ability and Bruno Mars's vocal ability. I think this is why people tend to do radically different versions of really successful songs with great singers, because I feel like his vocal ad-libs are kind of like a nimble tennis player and mine are kind of like a bumper car. Another maybe sort of unavoidable problem is how long the track is. I feel like for a pop track, You know, every second above 3.5 minutes needs a better and better reason for existing. And this one racks in at just under 6 minutes. But then again, like, I wanted to do the whole track and I didn't want to cut anything out. So like, you know, what can you do? But far and away, the biggest problem for me has been how long this whole process has taken. It took 2 years. And I mean, there are reasons for that. Part of it was I was just learning to be a filmmaker. You know, I don't have any training in filmmaking. You know, no one's taught me how to operate a camera or edit. So there's been a lot of trial and error. Part of it has been me figuring out the format as I go along. Again, like a lot more trial and error. Part of it has also been just juggling day jobs and childcare and just generally keeping the lights on. But perhaps the biggest and most frustrating component of that is I just work really slowly. This really reinforced it for me. I just work really slowly. I know that I have to kind of take my sweet time if I want any given project to give me the results that I want. So, I mean, it drives me mad, but I'm kind of learning to live with it. Although that said, whether or not I can actually build an audience on YouTube with this slower production rate remains to be seen. I have learnt so much about the way that I work. I'm a really big fan of Adam Savage, movie effects guy at Industrial Light and Magic, former host of the TV show Mythbusters, and now YouTuber extraordinaire. And he talks a lot about how on every single project he's working on, he has this phenomenon where 70% of the way through, he's just hit with this panic where he doesn't know what the hell he's doing and he feels completely out of his depth. And he said when he was working at Industrial Light and Magic, he always thought someone was going to tap him on the shoulder and say, look, you clearly don't know what you're doing. You need to leave. But he said that he's learnt that that happens every time. And now that he knows that, he knows he just needs to push through and he'll finish fine. What I learnt on this is that I get that, but I don't get it 70% of the way through. I get it 10% of the way through. I have this initial kind of burst of confidence, maybe even arrogance. I'm just like, yep, this is going to be simple. I am good at this. And then everything I do just sounds terrible. But now that I know that, I know I just need to push through that, and it's just the way I work, and that's kind of the order I do things, and then it starts to take shape. So that was something I learned. Something else I learned from this whole process is really fundamental about how I think I'm going to make these videos in future, because I feel like I figured out the filming style. What I thought I was going to need to do was plan everything meticulously in advance. I thought I was going to need to basically storyboard everything. As I got into it, I realized what made a lot more sense was just shooting a whole bunch of options and then finding it in the edit. It makes sense because it's less kind of time intensive. It's very difficult to imagine how everything is going to fit together when you can see nothing. But also, just more practically, when I think about the times when I've planned everything in advance, I just end up with boring results. So much of what I do is about happy accidents. So yeah, this was really important for me. Working out that for this particular format, it's all about finding it in the edit. And one more specific aspect of that, I did loosely kind of stick to a 3-act structure in the video, but I realized that when it actually comes to coming up with ideas, it's just as simple as, all right, now do something interesting. Now do something different and interesting over and over again, moment to moment. And I don't need any more of a structure than that. Like I can just feel like, all right, we've had enough of this idea, time to move on to something else. And I feel like, and you know, future videos may kind of scupper this, but I feel like that's actually all I need when editing videos. It's just that sense of the, all right, that's done, time for something new. I just want to give a very quick warning to anyone who's sensitive to flashing images. I don't think this video is going to be a problem, but there are like a couple of little bits where it does have a flashing effect, so I just wanted to flag that. Right, 2 years in the making. Let's watch the video.